Welcome to Revenge with Luna. I wasn't invited to my own mother's 60th birthday because my career wasn't impressive enough. Sweetheart, this is a sophisticated event. We don't want you feeling out of place, my mother told me over the phone. My older sister Lauren laughed in the background and added, maybe next time, pick a career that actually matters. Then my brother Derek chimed in loud enough for me to hear, an accountant at a mid-size firm? That's not exactly something we brag about at dinner parties. When the luxury resort party fell apart because no one could cover the bill they'd always secretly relied on me to pay, the whole family came crawling. But by then, I had already moved on. My name is Elena Reyes. I'm 31 years old. And if you think being underestimated is a weakness, wait until you see what happens when the person everyone ignores decides to stop showing up. Let me take you back to the beginning. I grew up in a family that measured worth in titles. My mother, Patricia Reyes, was a retired professor who never let anyone forget her doctorate. Lauren became a dermatologist. Derek went to law school and landed at a firm downtown. And then there was me, Elena. The quiet one. The one who liked numbers more than networking. I graduated summa cum laude with an accounting degree, passed the CPA exam on my first try, and built a career managing finances for growing businesses. I was good at what I did. Really good. But in my family, good wasn't enough unless it came with a title they could drop at cocktail parties. The truth is, being the invisible one had its uses for them. When Dad passed away 6 years ago, it was me who untangled his finances, settled his debts, and made sure Mom's retirement accounts were properly structured. When Lauren maxed out her credit cards opening her practice, I quietly co-signed a loan and helped her restructure her payments. When Derek needed $15,000 to cover a tax penalty he was too embarrassed to tell his wife about, I wired it without hesitation. Over the past 6 years, I had given or loaned my family just over $93,000. I kept a spreadsheet because that's what accountants do. Not a single dollar was ever acknowledged, let alone repaid. So, when Mom's 60th birthday rolled around and the family group chat lit up with plans for a 3-day celebration at a coastal resort in Savannah, I assumed I'd be part of it. Lauren had taken charge of the guest list. Derek was handling the venue deposit. Mom was picking out her outfits for each event, a welcome dinner, the birthday brunch, and a sunset cocktail party on the terrace. I texted Lauren, asking what I should wear to the welcome dinner. Her reply was a single sentence. Oh, we actually kept the list pretty curated this year. Curated. Like I was a stranger trying to get into a nightclub. I called Mom, hoping it was a misunderstanding. That's when she delivered the line that cracked something deep inside me. Sweetheart, this is a sophisticated event. We don't want you feeling out of place. You know how these things are. The guests are all professionals, doctors, attorneys, professors. It might be uncomfortable for you. She said it gently. The way you explain something to a child, and somehow that made it worse. I hung up and sat on the edge of my bed for a long time. $93,000. 6 years of being the silent safety net. And I wasn't sophisticated enough for a birthday party. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I opened my laptop, searched flights, and booked a 10-day trip to Portugal. Lisbon first, then Porto, then a small coastal village in the Algarve I'd been saving on my Pinterest board for years. I used the money I'd been setting aside. Not for them. For once. For me. The morning I left for the airport, Derek called. Elena, Mom mentioned you're upset about the party. Don't make this into a thing. It's not personal. We just want the event to reflect a certain image. You understand, right? I understand perfectly, I said. And I hung up before he could say another word. Portugal was everything I didn't know I needed. I landed in Lisbon on a Tuesday afternoon, dropped my bags at a small boutique hotel in the Alfama district, and wandered through winding cobblestone streets until sunset painted the city in shades of amber and rose. I ate grilled sardines at a tiny restaurant overlooking the Tagus River. The owner, an older woman named Fernanda, asked if I was celebrating something. I told her I was celebrating myself. She poured me a glass of Vinho Verde on the house and said, "That is the best reason." For the first 3 days, I turned my phone to airplane mode. No group chat notifications. No passive-aggressive texts. Just me, a city full of strangers. and the unfamiliar sensation of not being needed by people who didn't appreciate me. On the fourth day, I turned my phone back on. 47 notifications. The first few were from the family group chat, photos of the resort, the welcome dinner table decorated with white orchids, Mom in a navy blue gown looking regal. Everyone smiling. My absence, not even a shadow in the frame. But then the tone shifted. A message from Lauren at 11 p.m. On Saturday. Elena, call me when you get this. It's urgent. A voicemail from Derek, his voice tight with barely concealed panic. Hey, so there's a situation with the resort. Long story. But we need to talk about money. Call me back. And then, from Mom herself, a text that would have broken me a week ago. Elena, I know we said some things, but we need your help. Please don't punish us over a misunderstanding. I sat on the balcony of my hotel room, the Atlantic breeze warm on my face, and read every message twice. Here's what had happened. The resort required the remaining balance of $28,000 before the birthday brunch could proceed. Derek had put down a deposit months ago, promising the rest would come. But the rest had always been a fantasy. Lauren's practice was hemorrhaging money from a lawsuit she hadn't told anyone about. Derek's firm had cut bonuses, and his wife had recently discovered just how much of their savings he'd been funneling to Mom's lifestyle. And Mom had been living off the quiet generosity of the daughter she didn't invite. Without me, the math didn't work. It had never worked. I was the hidden column in the family budget, the line item no one acknowledged but everyone depended on. I didn't respond. Instead, I took a photo of the view from my balcony, the sun melting into the Atlantic Ocean, boats dotting the harbor like scattered jewels. I posted it with a simple caption. Some invitations you don't need. Some tables aren't worth sitting at. Lisbon taught me that peace is the most sophisticated thing you can wear. Then I turned my phone off and slept better than I had in years. The messages didn't stop. They multiplied. When I finally turned my phone back on 2 days later, the desperation had escalated exactly the way I expected, one family member at a time, each with their own strategy. Mom went first. A voicemail dripping with rehearsed emotion. Elena, baby. I didn't mean what I said. You know I love you. You're my daughter. Of course you belong with us. We were just stressed with the planning. Please, sweetheart. We need $28,000 to save the brunch and the cocktail party. I'll pay you back. I promise. Just don't let my birthday be ruined. She'd pay me back. The same woman who had never once acknowledged the car payment I'd covered, the emergency root canal, the property tax bill I'd quietly handled last November. Promises from someone who had never kept one. Next came Lauren. And her approach was guilt wrapped in sisterly concern. Elena, I get it. We hurt your feelings. But think about Mom. She's turning 60. Do you really want this on your conscience? Do you want to be the reason her milestone birthday falls apart? I know you have the money. You're smart with finances. That's your thing. So please, just help us get through this, and we can talk about everything else later. My thing. Managing money was my thing the way a maid's thing is cleaning. Useful when needed, invisible otherwise. Then Derek, who skipped emotion entirely and went straight to authority. Enough with the silent treatment, Elena. This is family. You don't just disappear when things get hard. Transfer the money, and we'll sort everything out when you're back. Don't be selfish. Selfish. The woman who had poured $93,000 into a family that couldn't even put her name on a guest list was selfish. I read each message in a cafe in Porto, sipping espresso, watching rain streak down the windows. A couple at the next table was laughing, sharing a pastel de nata, completely unaware of the storm inside my phone. I envied their lightness. Then I realized I could choose that lightness too. I just had to stop picking up weight that was never mine to carry. I didn't reply to any of them, not one. By the time I reached the Algarve, the situation back in Savannah had unraveled spectacularly. The resort issued a formal notice. Due to the outstanding balance, the remaining events for the Reyes reservation were canceled. The brunch was called off. The cocktail party dissolved. Guests who had traveled from out of state were left stranded at a resort with no party to attend. Lauren had apparently tried to put the balance on her credit card, but it was declined. Derek attempted to negotiate a payment plan, but the resort wasn't interested in promises from a family that had already missed 2 deadlines. Mom, who had spent weeks telling friends about her elegant 60th celebration, had to send a group text explaining that the events were postponed due to unforeseen circumstances. Everyone knew what unforeseen circumstances meant. The whisper network among their social circle was merciless. Patricia Reyes can't even pay her own birthday bill. Didn't they exclude one of the daughters? I heard the accountant daughter was the one funding everything. The humiliation my family had feared, the kind they tried to avoid by curating me off the guest list, arrived anyway. And it arrived wearing their own decisions. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my brother's wife, Sandra. A woman who had always been polite to me but never warm. Her message surprised me. Elena, I don't blame you. I just found out how much you've given this family over the years. Derek showed me the messages. I had no idea. I'm sorry they treated you this way. You deserved better. I stared at that message for a long time. It was the first acknowledgement I had ever received. From the one person who wasn't even blood. That evening, I walked along the cliffs of the Algarve coast, the ocean crashing against golden rock formations hundreds of feet below. The sky was impossibly wide, streaked with violet and fire. I thought about the little girl I used to be, the one who brought home straight A's hoping for praise and got a nod before the conversation turned back to Lauren's school play or Derek's soccer game. The girl who chose accounting not because she loved numbers, though she did, but because she thought being useful would finally make her visible. I took a photo of the cliffs at sunset and posted it. The caption read, "They said I wasn't sophisticated enough for their table. Turns out I was the one paying for it." Sometimes the best response to exclusion isn't anger. It's elevation. The response was immediate. Friends I hadn't heard from in months reached out with support. Coworkers sent heart emojis. A college roommate messaged me privately, saying she'd been through something similar with her own family and that my words had given her courage. Strangers in the comments shared their own stories of being the family workhorse, the invisible one who kept everything running while getting none of the credit. Meanwhile, back in Savannah, the fallout deepened. One of Mom's closest friends, a woman named Diane who had been at every family dinner for 20 years, called me directly. "Elena, your mother is devastated. She won't leave the house. Lauren and Derek are fighting. The whole family is falling apart. I know they hurt you, honey, but don't you think you should come home?" I thanked Diane for calling. Then I told her something I'd never said out loud before. "Diane, in 6 years, I've given my family over $90,000. I paid off debts, covered emergencies, handled bills they didn't even know existed. And when it came time to celebrate something joyful, they told me I wasn't good enough to be in the room. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just no longer volunteering to be used." The silence on her end lasted several seconds. Then, quietly, she said, "I didn't know that. Nobody did." That was the point. 2 days before my flight home, my mother called one last time. Her voice was different now. Not dramatic, not rehearsed. Smaller. Tired. "Elena, I know you probably won't answer this, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. Not because of the money. Because of what I said. You are sophisticated. You are enough. I was so focused on impressing people who don't matter that I pushed away the one person who actually showed up for me every time. Without being asked. I listened without speaking. My throat tightened. For one long, aching moment, I almost said, "It's okay, Mom. I'll help." The words were right there, shaped by 31 years of wanting her approval. But then I remembered the spreadsheet. $93,000. I remembered Derek calling me selfish. Lauren calling my career my thing. Mom saying I wasn't sophisticated enough. And I realized that the ache I felt wasn't love. It was habit. The habit of being needed and confusing it with being wanted. "I hear you, Mom," I said. "But hearing you isn't the same as trusting you. And right now, I don't." She cried. I let her. And then I gently ended the call. I flew home on a Sunday morning. The apartment I returned to felt different somehow. Not because anything had changed inside it, but because I had changed. The silence that used to feel lonely now felt chosen. The space that used to feel small now felt like freedom. That first week back, I didn't reach out to anyone in my family. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty about it. I went to work. I cooked meals I actually enjoyed. I started taking evening walks along the river near my apartment, something I'd always wanted to do but never had the energy for, because my evenings used to be consumed by someone else's crisis. On Wednesday, a coworker named Maya invited me to a dinner party at her place. Small group, just 8 people. I almost declined out of habit, but something in me said go. So I went. That dinner was nothing like the events my family obsessed over. No dress code, no name dropping. No invisible hierarchy, just good food, honest conversation, and laughter that came easily. Maya's friend Theo told a story about getting lost in Rome and accidentally attending a stranger's wedding. Everyone was crying from laughing. I laughed so hard my stomach hurt, and I realized I couldn't remember the last time that had happened around my own family. Walking home that night, the city lights reflecting off the river, I understood something that changed everything. The family I'd spent my whole life trying to earn a place in was never going to give me one. Not because I wasn't enough, but because they needed me to feel insufficient, so I'd keep giving without expecting anything in return. The moment I stopped being useful, I became disposable. That wasn't love. That was a transaction. And I was done being a line item in someone else's budget. Over the next few weeks, the fallout continued without me. Sandra, Derek's wife, filed for a temporary separation after discovering the full extent of the family's financial dysfunction. Lauren's malpractice lawsuit went public, and she could no longer hide behind the polished image she'd been curating. Mom, unable to face her social circle, stopped attending her book club, her garden committee, and her weekly brunch with Diane. Derek texted me one more time. Maddie, everything is falling apart. Sandra left. Mom won't eat. Lauren might lose the practice. We need you. I'll do anything. I'll pay you back every cent. I swear on Dad's grave. I read the message 3 times. He'd called me Maddie, a nickname he hadn't used since we were kids. Back when he was just my annoying older brother who used to steal my Halloween candy and then share his with me when he felt bad about it. Before titles and status, and whose career was worth mentioning at dinner. For a moment, I felt the pull. The old Elena, the fixer, the invisible provider, stirred inside me like muscle memory. But I opened my spreadsheet. $93,412. I scrolled through the entries. The dates, the amounts, the reasons. Lauren's loan. Derek's tax penalty. Mom's car repair. Mom's dental work. Mom's property tax. Derek's conference fees. Lauren's equipment deposit. On and on and on. 6 years of giving with nothing but silence in return. I closed the spreadsheet and put my phone in the drawer. That weekend, I hosted my own small gathering. Maya and Theo came, my neighbor, Priya, who I'd been friendly with for 2 years, but never actually invited over. A woman named Joanne from my yoga class who always saved me a spot. We made pasta from scratch, drank inexpensive wine, and talked about everything and nothing. No one asked what I did for a living as a measure of my worth. No one needed me to fix anything. They just wanted me there. After everyone left, I stood in my kitchen, dishwater warm on my hands, and felt something I hadn't felt in so long I almost didn't recognize it. Contentment. Not the anxious satisfaction of putting out someone else's fire. Not the fleeting relief of receiving a thank you that never came. Just quiet, steady contentment. The kind that comes from being somewhere you actually belong. I dried my hands and opened my journal. I'd started writing in it during Portugal, just fragments at first, thoughts that needed somewhere to land. Now the pages were filling up. I turned to a fresh one and wrote slowly. They measured worth in titles and called it sophistication. They measured love in usefulness and called it family. But I've learned that real sophistication is knowing your value without needing someone to announce it. And real family is the people who show up not because they need you, but because they choose you. I closed the book and set it on the shelf beside the photo I'd framed from Lisbon. Fernanda's restaurant at sunset, the river glowing, a glass of green wine catching the last light. A moment of pure, unshadowed joy. 3 months passed. My life expanded in ways I hadn't expected. I took on a new client at work, a woman-owned tech startup, and threw myself into the challenge. I signed up for a pottery class and discovered I was terrible at it, which made me laugh every Tuesday evening. I booked another trip, this time to the Scottish Highlands, because I could and because I deserved to see the world outside the narrow lens my family had given me. Mom sent a letter. Not a text, not a call. A handwritten letter. It arrived on a Thursday, her neat cursive filling 2 pages. She wrote about Dad. How after he died, she was so afraid of appearing weak that she overcompensated by appearing important. How she leaned on me financially because I never complained, and how she convinced herself that my silence meant I didn't mind. How she looked at the guest list for her birthday and felt a flicker of guilt but let Lauren convince her that keeping it exclusive was the right call. How she regretted it every single day since. At the bottom, she wrote, "I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking you to fix anything. I'm asking if there's any chance, even a small one, that you'd be willing to have coffee with me. Not as the daughter I overlooked, but as the woman you've become. A woman I'm only now realizing I barely know." I read the letter twice. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in my journal. I didn't respond right away. Not because I was angry, but because I wanted to respond from a place of strength, not from the old wound that still whispered maybe this time will be different. A week later, I texted her. "I'll think about it." 3 words. Not a yes, not a no. Just the truth. That evening, I posted one final photo. My apartment, late afternoon light spilling across the kitchen table. A vase of sunflowers I'd bought myself. A glass of wine. My journal open. A plate of pasta from the recipe Maya had taught me. Simple. Warm. Mine. The caption read, "They said I wasn't enough for their table. So I built my own. And at mine, no one has to earn their seat." The comments came in waves. People I knew, people I didn't, all saying the same thing in different ways. "You inspired me. I've been there. Thank you for saying what I couldn't." My inbox filled with stories from people who had been the invisible ones in their families, the ones who gave everything and received nothing, who were finally learning that walking away wasn't selfish. It was survival. And somewhere in a house that used to feel like the center of my universe, I knew my family saw it too. The daughter they deemed unsophisticated had built a life more elegant than anything their curated guest list could have produced. Not because I had more money or a fancier title, but because I had something they never thought to value. I had peace. The party that never happened for me became the moment everything changed. Not with fury, not with revenge plots, not with dramatic confrontations. Just with absence. My absence. The absence of my money, my emotional labor, my willingness to be overlooked. I used to think belonging meant being invited. Now I know belonging means being somewhere your presence is celebrated, not just your contributions. And the irony, the beautiful, aching irony, is that the family who told me I wasn't sophisticated enough for their table couldn't even keep the table standing without me. I don't hate them. Hate would mean they still occupy space in my life they haven't earned back. What I feel is something quieter and far more powerful. I feel free. Free from the need to prove myself. Free from the cycle of giving without receiving. Free from measuring my worth against titles I never wanted. Some mornings, I wake up and the apartment is still and golden and entirely mine. I make coffee the way I like it, strong with a little cinnamon. I open my journal and read the words I've written over these months, the messy, honest chronicle of a woman who finally chose herself. And on the last page, written the night I came home from Portugal, are the words I come back to whenever the old doubts try to creep in. Exclusion was their choice. Freedom was mine. And I would choose freedom every single time. Because when the fancy invitations are forgotten, when the resort bills come due, when the polished image cracks under its own weight, all that remains is truth, and the truth is this. I was never the one who didn't belong. I was the one who finally stopped pretending their version of belonging was enough. And that, more than any title or guest list or 3-day celebration, is the most sophisticated thing I've ever done.